Hello, my name is Mark Bauman, and I'm one of the parish pastors from the first cohort that went through these learning labs that you're starting in. We went through it in 2015. It's been a great journey that actually even started before the learning labs, and we've really been just encouraged at the different ways we've seen God at work. So I'm excited to hear in the coming months about just the different ways you see God at work in your parishes as well. So I have the privilege of going through some of the key points from chapter 5 of Jonathan Alexander's Being Church book. Chapter 5 is entitled Personal Identity, Affinity Groups, and Nationalisms. A lot of words that might not seem to connect very easily, and I'll just try to boil it down to just a handful of key points. Before we start talking about groups, just want to mention a little bit from an earlier video that you probably saw from an earlier chapter, the idea of that acronym FIRES, and the I in that stands for individualism. And that's one of the aspects, as you've already heard from an earlier video, was that in our culture we're very individualistic. People don't go deep with one another. They don't have a lot of sort of intimate relationships, sometimes even with family, and rarely with people in their neighborhood or places of work. But people have a longing to be part of something bigger and to have a deeper purpose for their life. And God provides that. So we'll unpack a couple of different types of groups. The first being what we call, the overall topic would be affinity groups, the overall category. And one type of affinity group are thin groups. And thin groups are those that are generally built around a special interest or an activity. It could be, if you're a book lover, you might be part of a meetup of people who live on the east side who like the Harry Potter books. You could be a runner like myself, and you might want to join a group or a training group to prepare for a half marathon. There are all sorts of affinity groups, and they can be great places to pick up some skills and to train together or enjoy a subject that you're passionate about with other people. Generally speaking, though, affinity groups do not provide this greater sense of purpose and a way to express that. And so they leave people wanting more. The same can be said for neighborhoods. Often people in neighborhoods really don't have that many connections with those around them, but they may be part of an affinity group. So the people that come over to their apartment or to their house to socialize actually might not be from their neighborhood, but from the affinity group in which they're part of. And it's easy for people to start to gain their identity from the affinity groups they're part of. But then typically affinity groups are pretty narrow in scope and vision, and most people who are part of one are very much similar to one another. So it doesn't really give us a wide reflection of society around us. Families and churches can be similar as well. Churches can be collections of affinity groups, and families, it's not uncommon for people to pick up and move to follow a job and then wind up being disconnected from the support and help of their extended family. So we talked a little bit about thin groups or affinity groups, and they're not necessarily bad. It's just not where we're going to derive purpose. And but it's okay to be part of an affinity group. In fact, we probably all have been part of one at some point in our life, or currently part of one. And chapter 5 doesn't talk about this, but I want to share a little bit about what Jesus promises in Matthew 9:37 and 38. He promises us that the harvest is plentiful. There's just not enough laborers. So as you're part of an affinity group, I just encourage you to pray for God to open your eyes to who around you is the Holy Spirit already stirring in. So there may be harvest just ready to be reaped around you in your affinity groups. So we really would encourage you as you participate in thin groups to be asking God to reveal to you who He's working in and who's part of the harvest. Be upfront with people and let them know that you're a follower of Jesus. And then listen to their needs, pray for them, and look for ways to serve them. The other type of group would be dense groups, so the opposite of thin groups. And dense groups, they help fill that need that people have to be part of a larger whole that has a meaningful goal. And so God, in all of his infinite wisdom, has provided us with the church. It's a place where people spanning all ages and backgrounds come together to worship him and to serve one another. And this is the type of group that we long for. And it really requires a commitment to openness and intimacy, and the willingness to submit to the God and respond in obedience as the Holy Spirit prompts to serve one another. And just the ability to be flexible and laugh. Being part of a dense group like the church can require a lot of perseverance at times. Ultimately, that perseverance is borne out through the love of Jesus. Another way to look at thin groups and dense group is through this lens of allegiance. So chapter 5 talks a little bit about that. And Jonathan says that groups' allegiance reveal their plan of salvation. So the Bible suggests that only God merits our allegiance. So so we have to find ways in our parish to distance ourselves from where we place our allegiance if it's not on God, and direct our way to giving him our total allegiance, making him Lord of our life. And this really comes from having his love. That's all part of transformation. So we must become people of love in our parish. That's our mission and the heart of our calling. Thank you, and I hope you have a great time in Learning Lab 1.